What's up guys, I'm Shok, welcome back to the channel. So hopefully you watched yesterday's video on Faker's Orianna laning, but if you didn't, I'd recommend going to check that out. But today we're going to do a video on Showmaker's Leblanc into Vex. So this is a losing matchup, and again this is going to be a prequel to the full laning guide that I'm going to do. But yesterday we covered how to play a winning matchup, and today we're going to cover how to neutralize or how to play a losing matchup. So first off, why is this a losing matchup? Well, first off, Leblanc has very, very long cooldowns, 18 seconds on the W, which is their main trading tool. There are very few champions that have a CD that long. It doesn't automatically mean that Leblanc loses every lane, but it does mean that champs that have key cooldowns that do well against Leblanc that are shorter than that have a very good time against her. So examples of this is stuff like Syndra's stun is shorter than Leblanc's W, and in this case, it's Vex's W. About the same time. This is going to mean that Vex just has a shield every time LeBlanc W's in, unless she W's in literally the second it comes off cooldown. So that's going to be very important because it means it's very hard for LeBlanc to trade into her. Quickly, I'll show LeBlanc's runes. Pretty standard for LeBlanc, just a nice scaling page. So the first thing here is that LeBlanc is actually elected to take TP. And this is really important because when you're in a losing matchup, oftentimes your health bar is really, really important because you are gonna basically there's a few things. So first off, if you're in a losing matchup, you're either gonna get poked down or you're gonna get all in. So either one of those, having higher HP is obviously gonna help you, and having TP essentially gives you a second health bar, and it also fills up 3 refillable pots whenever you base. Another thing is that oftentimes you see in losing matchups, and if you watched yesterday's video, you'll see that Vex in yesterday's video was oftentimes under tower, just on half HP, and would miss CS because they had to be careful about taking more damage. So another thing that TP allows you to do is to kind of take additional damage in exchange for CS to not fall behind. Another final thing is that you also saw in yesterday's video that Vex she had to base twice and give up huge waves for that, and that meant that Faker's Orianna just pulled further and further ahead. So let's see what Showmaker does. Again, when you're in a losing matchup, you don't really want to push the lane. So there's a few reasons for that. The first reason is that if you push the lane in a losing matchup, and even if you get level 2 first, you might not be able to do anything with it. Or it could mean that they can freeze it really easily, and then since they're stronger than you, they can punish you really hard even though you have a minion advantage. Obviously it does depend on the matchup, but just in general, you don't want to push the wave too much when you're in a losing matchup. Instead, you kind of want to keep the wave in the middle or on your side. So there's a few reasons for that. The first reason is that it's going to make it a bit safer for you to CS. You're not going to be able to get ganked, and you always have the safety of your tower. The second reason is that it'll actually make the enemy gankable. So that means that they will have to think about being ganked, and they might at times have to play a bit safer, especially when you're in this sort of matchup. If you're the Vex, you actually have to be quite careful, even if you push in, because of LeBlanc and Zhao being such a strong ganking combo. So even though this 1v1 is, I would say, pretty bad for LeBlanc, the matchup itself is winnable if you just play defensively and kind of wait for your jungler. You can see here, I mean, this is kind of how the matchup goes. Vex can literally walk at LeBlanc and out-trade her, which is a pretty, that's pretty sad, to be honest. But basically, all that Showmaker is going to try and do here is do his best to thin out the wave and try get CS without taking too much damage for it. He also started Q, which is sort of nice because you can just hit him for mana flow, or you can also use it to last hit creeps if you need. Very nice movement there. That was a mistake by Vex, I'm pretty sure. I just want to go back. So if you can keep your movement somewhat erratic, it'll make it harder for the enemy to hit spells, and also you can sometimes fake CS. So here, the reason Vex used her E there is because it looked like LeBlanc was going to go for this CS, but this CS isn't actually taking any damage at the moment. So what Showmaker did is he inputted a movement towards the CS, which made Vex think that okay, he's going for the CS, now is the time to harass, but they actually just moved away from it. And then because that cooldown was baited out for free, he was able to get the CS for not taking any damage. And again, I really want to reiterate, guys, that in a lot of these really, really high elo matchups, people look at it and think just oh, there's nothing really happening, and they sometimes, I've had people say I'm just not really sure, it just looks like both players are playing really passive, and they're not sure what to learn from it, what to take away. Guys, it's not like that at all. It's extremely, extremely active. There is a lot of thinking, there is thought going into like every single click. And so even if it looks like nothing is happening, I promise you that there's like layers and layers of shit going on that you're probably not even thinking about. So Vex, I don't really like what she did. She crashed 2 waves, which isn't super great, just because like at level 3 is when Vex needs to be really scared of the jungler. So she kind of had like an extra wave that she could have harassed with, in my opinion. Like now she's going to be kind of like trying to push this 3rd wave under the tower, as opposed to crashing 3 waves under the tower, which actually means like she needs to be a bit careful here. I'd say that like this is like the sort of time where you know, when Xin Zhao finishes buff, could actually look mid. So Vex needs to be a little bit careful here. And I think that is like sort of a product of poor wave control, in my opinion. It does look like Xin Zhao's going to come for this gank, and I think, yeah. So basically, Leblanc has just like kept the wave on her side, and she's waited for Vex to make a mistake. And Vex has definitely made a mistake. I'm not even sure if anything comes of this, but yeah, okay. So that's really nice for LeBlanc, even though Vex doesn't die. Okay, she had to flash, and she also lost her whole HP bar. So that basically means that LeBlanc gets a free lane for the next like minute or so, because like Vex will be too low to do anything. And it also means that Vex has a lot lower like all-in, and a lot harder like gank setup while she has no flash. Like she can't do the flash W or anything like that. And it makes it harder for Vex to pressure, because like she doesn't have flash to get away from a gank. So basically, I would say that like Showmaker, despite being in like a really losing matchup, like you saw what happened at the start. Like Vex literally walks at him and just out trades him. He's in like a really, really good spot now. I would say he's ahead. And it was mainly because of like Vex making a mistake, but like guys of Korean challenges make mistakes. I bet people are making mistakes in your diamond games or whatever rank you are. So yeah, so far there hasn't really been too much to it. Basically, Showmaker has just like avoided harass really well. He's like baited out cooldowns. And he also made sure to keep the wave on his side. So after this base, it's in a pretty good spot. Again, like picking up the boots versus any champion with skill shots is very valuable. And he used the TP to make sure he didn't lose any CS here. You don't always do this, because like in reality, you only lose like 3 or so creeps here, right? But I think the main reason he did this is to stay ahead in XP. So you see he's level 4, and Vex is just a little bit less than that. The problem is, if Vex hits 6 first in this matchup, she might just kill LeBlanc, like straight away. She might just ult LeBlanc, dive on her before LeBlanc has that second dash. So if you can make sure, as LeBlanc in this matchup, to not give Vex that level 6 before you, there should be no way you die from here on out. That was pretty nice from Vex. Managed to get LeBlanc while she was going for that CS there. Okay, so here I think we'll most likely see Showmaker again. So you can see Vex doing a good job actually harassing him when he goes for CS, but I think here you'll see he's mainly going to let the wave come to him. And just like get it in a position again where he can like farm safely and like let Xin Zhao come for a gank. It's worth noting, guys, that like you don't really like want the wave to be here. Like you do, because it's a losing matchup, but it's kind of just like you have to have it that way, sort of. Like if you were to push, if you're against a good player, you get traded on really heavily. You know, you'd get punished really hard. You wouldn't be able to farm as easily, and she wouldn't be gankable. But just like the reality is, if you have the wave on this side of your lane, you aren't going to be able to impact the map as much. And that's just like what happens if you're in a losing matchup. You can't have everything. So if keeping the wave on your side and making it gankable, trying to punish the enemy mid if they overextend, it's basically the best you can do out of a bad situation. But ultimately, like, it's pretty good, right? Like if you can literally just go even when you're hard counted or you're soft counted or whatever, that's very, very nice. So yeah, here, like, pretty good if you can just try and manage to get the CS. It's actually so sad, man. How strong Vex's trades are into LeBlanc. There's really no way for LeBlanc to W into her. Okay, so you can see the exact same thing has happened here. The wave is in a spot where it's really difficult for Vex to walk up. She like has to walk really far back because she's scared of this Xin Zhao gank. See, ooh, hits the chain. Maybe he dies here, or maybe just fears him away. Okay, feared him away, but again, guys, like, Vex has like lost all her HP, which means that like LeBlanc just like gets a free reset out of this. It's also nice that Xin Zhao pushes this wave for her to make sure she gets that reset like without dying at all. And I think while you can say that like this is somewhat a product of the jungle matchup, like obviously Xin Zhao is a stronger early ganker than Gwen, but obviously Gwen has had no opportunities to do anything here because the wave has always been on this side, and also it's LeBlanc, like she's very hard to gank. So the main, like, I guess, like, things that have, like, made this a good lane Holy shit, he managed to solo kill him. Okay, quickly before that, the main things that have managed to make this a good lane state for Leblanc so far is the really nice wave control, like just keeping it on the side, and also managing to avoid harass. So I really think like that one time, like when he like manages to bait out the cooldowns and he gets the CS without taking any damage, that's very high skill, and it'll allow you to make these like difficult matchups into winnable matchups. Let's quickly have a look at the solo kill. I was kind of thinking about other stuff. So yeah, this is actually kind of a product of hitting 6 before your opponent. So you can see Vex only halfway to level 6, whereas LeBlanc is level 6 here. So that XP advantage does just like kind of transition into a solo kill. There isn't too much Vex can do about this. Like, are you really going to give up a whole cannon wave? Like, you could, but you're like in a winning matchup giving up a full cannon wave. You might as well just FF the game at that point. But now now LeBlanc is in an extremely good spot, and I actually like that she went for Merc Tread. So there's a couple reasons here. First off, the enemy mid jungle is double AP. The MR gets a lot of value, but also the Vex is a lot of CC. You know, she got the fear. So I think it's a very good buy. It also means that pretty much there's no way Vex can ever do anything at this point, and LeBlanc should be able to like reasonably trade now. Yeah, you can see her playing pretty aggressive. Like now LeBlanc is the one looking for trades when Vex goes for CS. So that's really, really nice, like now that she's at that point in the lane. Again, like keeping the wave close to tower, yeah, I was going to say, we'll probably W in here, look for some harass. I think the main reason she did that, despite there being like a creepy advantage, is that she had that level advantage. She had just hit level 7, I think, by Wing in. Let's actually just go back and check. Yeah, so it looks like here, hit level 7 by Wing in, or using the R. It was a pretty nice trade, even though she missed the chain. I actually think if she hit the chain, she might have gotten the kill. That's really, really nice, using that level advantage like that. So at this point, I'm not sure what else is going to happen in the lane. I feel like LeBlanc's just in such a good spot. I can kind of... Ooh. Okay. Holy shit, okay, he hit the clone. Does he die for that? Okay, he still managed to die. I mean, yeah, I feel like the rest of this lane is not really going to be that important. We'll see what else happens, but I really feel like most of it has kind of like not already been decided, but already been talked about. Kind of interesting to see, guys, even though I think like Showmaker's played this lane pretty well, you can see he's actually still down in CS. Like, simply put, like he hasn't CS that well, like he has missed a lot, but when you are in these hard matchups where you're getting pressured for every single CS and like you've got to try bait out their spells and you know you've got to like think really carefully about the wave and stuff like that, naturally you're just going to miss more CS. Looks here, again, like I'll say it again and again, but the wave in that like defensive spot really puts it in a good spot for Xin Zhao. Like, yeah, okay, missed both chains. But I think like, yeah, you can see that like Vex has to get walked off there. And I think if either one of those chains hit, Vex would have had to flash. So just the wave control is making it really difficult for Vex at the moment. Is this going to be another gank? It looks like it is. Maybe a flash? Oh, doesn't even need a flash. Ooh, he dies. No. Okay. Honestly, I don't think there's like too much more in the lane. It's about that 10-minute mark, so I will quickly recap like all the stuff. I guess like the main things are when you're in a defensive matchup, you really want to keep the wave like on your side, kind of like here or at least in the middle. You know, if you can't freeze it here, and that allows you to like gank the enemy. It allows you to farm safely. It allows you make sure you can't get ganked, you can't get run down the lane, all that kind of good stuff. So generally, if you're on the back foot, you know, you're a defensive laner, or you know your matchup's just bad or whatever, if you can keep the wave on this side, it's really good. Also, if you remember earlier, baiting out spells is very, very important, because if like, okay, if you make it really obvious whenever you're going to CS, you're going to get harassed for every single CS, and simply put, you'll take too much damage. One thing you see in really high-level matchups, so I actually think like Syndra is an example. If you get hit by every Syndra Q, you will die at like level 2 or level 3. There's just too much damage. But Syndra Q is actually reasonably dodgeable, and it costs like a fair amount of mana. So obviously that, like, neither of these champs is Syndra, right? But the point is that these champs are, a lot of these like lane bullies are balanced around a skill shot. So Orianna has a skill shot, Syndra has a skill shot. Those are just the two I can think off the top of my head. Not all of them, I guess like Victor and stuff don't, but a lot of them, they have this like key cooldown that you can dodge. And actually, if you've watched some of my other videos, you'll see that's why I find Victor to be like sort of a harder matchup for a lot of the champs is because he doesn't have their skill shots to dodge. But if you're in like a matchup where there are skill shots, if you just like bait CS correctly, you know, you bait out their cooldowns, all that kind of stuff, it can mean that like you avoid a lot of damage and you get a lot of CS for free. I think that's kind of like all in summary. Again, this is a prequel to my full laning guide. I think so now I've gone over kind of like aggressive laning and defensive laning, kind of just like the winning matchup and losing matchup. Again, if you didn't watch yesterday's video, go and watch it. It was a banger. So yeah, look forward to my full laning video. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. If you liked it, go ahead and like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.